The night was thick with tension as Relia slipped through the shadows of the human settlement. Her heart pounded in her chest, each beat a reminder of the stakes. Her family, her mate, Kale, and their 2 younglings, had been taken by human soldiers during a raid on their village. She had no time to waste. The humans were known for their ruthlessness, and she feared what they might do to her loved ones. Relia's sharp, feline-like eyes scanned the area. Her alien physiology allowed her to see clearly in the dark, her elongated ears twitching at the slightest sound. She moved silently, her lithe form blending into the environment. But as she approached the storage facility where she believed her family was being held, she heard footsteps. She froze, her breath catching in her throat. A human soldier emerged from the shadows, his rifle slung over his shoulder. He was tall, with broad shoulders and a stern expression. Relia's hand instinctively went to the blade at her side, but before she could act, the soldier spoke. "I know you're there," he said, his voice calm but firm. "You're not very good at hiding." Relia's heart raced. She stepped out, her blade drawn, her eyes blazing with defiance. "If you try to stop me, I'll kill you," she hissed. The soldier raised his hands, showing he meant no harm. "I'm not here to fight you. My name is Ethan. And I think I know why you're here." Relia hesitated, her grip tightening on the blade. "You took my family. I want them back." Ethan nodded. "I've seen what's happening. The raids, the captures, it's not right. I want to help you." Relia's eyes narrowed. "Why should I trust you?" Ethan sighed. "Because I've seen enough suffering. And because I can see the pain in your eyes. You're willing to do anything for them, aren't you?" Relia's resolve wavered. She had expected hostility, violence, even death. But this was unexpected. She lowered her blade slightly, her voice trembling. "If you're lying to me, I'll kill you." Ethan nodded. "Fair enough. But first, let's get out of here before someone else finds us." Ethan led Relia to a secluded cabin on the outskirts of the settlement. It was a small, rustic place, hidden among the trees. Inside, the air was warm, and the faint scent of wood smoke lingered. Relia remained on edge, her eyes darting around the room as Ethan lit a lantern. "You'll be safe here," Ethan said, setting the lantern on the table. "For now, at least." Relia crossed her arms, her tail flicking nervously behind her. "Why are you helping me?" Ethan sat down, his expression serious. "Because I've seen what happens when we let fear and hatred guide us. I've seen families torn apart, just like yours. I can't stand by and let it happen again." Relia studied him, her sharp eyes searching for any sign of deceit. But all she saw was sincerity. Slowly, she sat down across from him. "What's your plan?" Ethan leaned forward, his hands clasped. "The facility where they're holding your family is heavily guarded. But I know the layout. If we move quickly and quietly, we can get them out. But it's going to be dangerous." Relia nodded. "I'm not afraid of danger." Ethan smiled faintly. "I can see that. But you'll need to trust me. Can you do that?" Relia hesitated, then nodded again. "For my family, I'll do anything." As they began to outline the plan, Relia couldn't help but notice the way Ethan's eyes softened when he spoke of her family. There was a kindness in him, a humanity that she hadn't expected. And for the first time since her family was taken, she felt a flicker of hope. Over the next few days, Relia and Ethan prepared for the rescue mission. They spent hours going over the facility's layout, discussing strategies, and practicing their moves. But as they worked together, something began to shift between them. One evening, as they sat by the fire, Relia found herself studying Ethan's face. His strong jaw, the faint stubble on his cheeks, the way his eyes reflected the firelight. She had never been this close to a human before, and she was surprised by how comforting his presence was. "You're staring," Ethan said, a small smile playing on his lips. Relia blinked, her cheeks darkening with a faint blush. "I was just thinking." "About what?" She hesitated, then looked into his eyes. "About why you're doing this. You're risking everything for me. For my family." "Why?" Ethan's smile faded, and he looked into the fire. "Because I've lost people too. And if I can help you save yours, maybe it'll make up for some of the things I've done." Relia reached out, her slender fingers brushing against his hand. "You're a good man, Ethan." Ethan turned to her, his eyes searching hers. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then, slowly, he leaned in, his lips brushing against hers. The kiss was soft, tentative, but filled with an unspoken understanding. Relia's heart raced as she kissed him back, her hands moving to his chest. When they finally pulled apart, Ethan rested his forehead against hers. "We'll get them back," he whispered. "I promise." The night of the rescue was tense. Relia and Ethan moved through the shadows, their movements synchronized. They had practiced this moment countless times, but nothing could have prepared them for the reality. As they approached the facility, Relia's heart pounded in her chest. She could feel the weight of the mission pressing down on her. But she also felt Ethan's presence beside her, steady and reassuring. They infiltrated the facility with precision, taking out guards silently and efficiently. But as they reached the holding cells, they were met with resistance. A group of soldiers blocked their path, their weapons drawn. "Go!" Ethan shouted, pushing Relia toward the cells. "I'll hold them off." Relia hesitated, her eyes wide with fear. "Ethan." "Go," he repeated, his voice firm. "Save your family." With a final glance, Relia turned and ran. She found her family in one of the cells, their eyes lighting up with hope as they saw her. She quickly unlocked the door, her hands trembling. "We have to go," she said, her voice urgent. "Now." As they made their way back, Relia's heart sank. She could hear the sounds of fighting echoing through the facility. Ethan was still out there. Relia led her family to safety, her heart heavy with worry. She had promised Ethan they would leave together, but now, she wasn't sure if he would make it. As they reached the edge of the settlement, Relia turned to her mate, Kale. "Take the younglings and go. I have to go back." Kale's eyes widened. "Relia, no. It's too dangerous." "I can't leave him," she said, her voice breaking. "He saved us. I have to save him." Before Kale could protest, Relia turned and ran back toward the facility. Her heart pounded as she retraced her steps, her mind racing with fear. When she reached the facility, she found Ethan surrounded by soldiers, his body battered and bleeding. "Ethan," she screamed, rushing to his side. Ethan looked up, his eyes filled with pain. "Relia, you should have left." "I'm not leaving you," she said, her voice fierce. She stood, her blade drawn, and faced the soldiers. "If you want him, you'll have to go through me." The soldiers hesitated, but before they could act, reinforcements arrived. Relia and Ethan were outnumbered, but they fought with everything they had. In the end, they managed to escape, but not without cost. As they stumbled into the forest, Ethan collapsed, his strength finally giving out. Relia knelt beside him, tears streaming down her face. "You're going to be okay," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You have to be." Ethan reached up, his hand brushing her cheek. "You saved me," he said, his voice weak. "Just like I saved you." Relia leaned down, her lips meeting his in a desperate, passionate kiss. It was a kiss filled with fear, hope, and love. When they pulled apart, Ethan smiled faintly. "We'll make it," he said. "Together." And as they sat there, holding each other in the darkness, Relia knew that no matter what the future held, they would face it together. The end.